But the connection between Alina and the Darkling, like, it's next level. And Ben Barnes, even though he has like scratches on his face, looks fantastic. It's very hard to not like Ben Barnes. I'm terribly sorry, but it's impossible. Hey everyone, welcome back to Candid Cinema. I'm Amanda, otherwise known as AMXND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Today I will be reviewing season 2 of Shadow and Bone, and I absolutely love the first season. The one thing that I love about this series is that A, it is only 8 episodes. Each season is 8 episodes. B, none of the episodes drag, and there's so much information being thrown at you. It's very fast-paced. Love the action. And I think that the reason why I like season 2 more than season 1 is that you're adding more characters into the mix, and it just becomes overwhelming to process, but at the same time, you're very quick to connect to these characters and know who everyone is. This is one of the first series, the first fantasy series in a long time where I'm picking up the names really fast. Maybe it's because I'm reading Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is kind of like an extension of the Shadow and Bone series that she also wrote. And it's just about the crows. And I love the crows so much. And my boss and my friend, Maud Garrett, who runs her book club, Maud's Book Club, that I currently work for and write for, she's been hounding me to read Six of Crows. So I've been reading it in honor of her birthday, with her birthday month this month, and obviously Shadow and Bone coming out. But it's just, it's amazing. It's such a good book. And then you get to know the crows. And I think Six of Crows is like directly connected to this season because the half of where the crows are kind of starting in the book, I'm like about a quarter of the way through right now. It's following that pattern, especially between Inej and Kaz, who their relationship breaks my heart. It really does. And I think that's what I love about the crows. So Jesper also comes into his own in season 2. He has more development, and I like that. I feel like it was more Jesper heavy in between the crows, more so than Kaz and Inej. I think that Kaz had to deal with some really brutal flashbacks in season 2, and I liked how that tied into Pekka Rollins, who basically owns everything on the strip that Kaz really holds close. So I think he had to deal with his demons, he had to deal with his past, with his brother, his family, and I think I'm going to dive into spoilers because I really do think that this show is really well done. I like the balance between the crows with the hand-to-hand combat in the action versus the magic of the Sun Summoner with Alina. I think that having that distinction and having 2 ways to fight to balance out this show is really strong, and that's what keeps it going. It's very punchy and different, and I like the slow-mo shots with the crows. I think you can get to see their style of fighting, especially with Inej, who I adore. I adore her, and that's just based off of the fact that she is such a fierce fighter and she's so loyal, but she sees love as a weakness, and she's really trying to push those feelings down for Kaz, and we get to explore that with Inej, and I think that's really important, especially as a woman in an all-male group, and B, like in a fantasy world where she has to, hold her own and be her own fighter and defend herself. Like, I'll save myself, and there's a lot of that in Shadow and Bone, even with Alina. So flipping over to Alina, because I just absolutely love the crows, and I'm loving Six of Crows. If you haven't read it, definitely read it. And I think Crooked Kingdom is the second book to Six of Crows, but I'm vibing this entire thing. We flip over to Alina. With relationships, I didn't really buy Alina and Mal. I warmed up to Mal and Alina, but the connection between Alina and the Darkling, like, it's next level. And Ben Barnes, even though he has like scratches on his face, looks fantastic. It's very hard to not like Ben Barnes. I'm terribly sorry, but it's impossible. So Alina and Mal go on this adventure. They have to find a map to the Sea Whip, which is another amplifier that she needs to ingest, basically take the power in order to tear down the fold. Really simple. So simple. So simple that they end up figuring this all out by episode 3, and episode 3 is really freaking strong. So by doing so, you have the map, but you don't have a ship or people to kind of guide you to where the Sea Whip is. They find this brother and sister, Tamara and Tolia. Absolutely love Louis Tan in this. phenomenal. Adorable. Loved everything about him. He's so fun in this. They know this guy named Sturmhond who has a ship and he has, all of these weapons. He's ready to go. He's like a privateer and he knows what to do. Alina needs to get to the Sea Whip and she's like, I'll promise you like gold and this and like from the king himself. And obviously she's fibbing and he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. The king is what you say. All right, no problem. And there's a bounty again, like double the money on Alina and the Darkling's head because obviously they think that Alina's working with the Darkling, which causes so many problems. So this guy is like, don't worry about it. I'll take that bounty off your head and we'll figure this out. But all I want for you is like safe passage to where, I need to be. Kind of plays her as well. So they go to the Sea Whip. Very easy. I felt like everything's too easy. She can just get the Sea Whip and everything's fine. She doesn't want to kill the Sea Whip, but by accident, she kills the Sea Whip because her power is getting stronger. She doesn't know that the Darkling has returned and is just kind of weaker than he used to be, which is interesting too, to play that up with Alexander. Once she takes the scales of the Sea Whip, it burns the Darkling. Like it's there. Like he feels her power and then she sees him. So the connection is still there, which David said that there is going to be a bridge between the two of them without even trying, whether it's magic, whether it's the amplifier, or whether it's their love connection, whatever you want to say, they are bound to each other and it's insanity. And the Darkling is getting inside her head, really intimate spaces, and is kind of like a violation as well. So we have to remember that the Darkling is violating Alina, but at the same time, Alina still feels like so tied to him and she feels something for him. She doesn't know how to explain it. And it's along the same lines of what she feels for Mal, which is even worse. So once they touch base after the whole Sea Whip, after they try to take the fold down, she can't do it. She literally can't hold her power. She can't contain it because it's breaking some sort of fold in her, let alone the actual shadow fold. But as she's emitting this power in the middle of the fold, she locks eyes with Mal. And it feels like Mal's this like next, destination, this next big thing for her that she has to take and take a chance with. So she's thinking, it's love, it's a relationship and all of that. Until later on, which I will get into, we find out something else. And like Sturmhond reveals that he is Nikolai and he's the prince of Ravka, and it just throws everyone for a loop. But he's not like his brother who's king right now, and he's the one who's in the middle of the civil war and the kingdom just going to pieces because of him. Whereas Nikolai wants to protect the Grisha, make everyone unify and be under one, just one roof that they can protect each other and live harmoniously. And I think that I like that change, that difference, and that's what makes Nikolai such a wonderful addition to the Shadow and Bone cast, to the story. I think that Nikolai is fantastic. He's one of my favorites this season next to Tolia, but they try to help Alina, and Alina kind of proves herself as a sun summoner, and that's why Nikolai believes in her. Moving past that, Alina feels the Darkling feels Alina. She knows that he's alive, and everyone finds this out at the exact same time. Genya is still with the Darkling. David's with the Darkling because he finds her, and they plan to kind of like run off and tell her that they're in East Ravka. They're close to the Darkling, and she needs to be warned. So they try to escape. Genya unfortunately doesn't escape because the Darkling has created these shadow monsters that are an extension of him, but he can't control them. So it's just all of his pent up anger that is thrown into these creatures that are essentially unkillable because they have no heart, they have no blood. It's literally just dust. And the Volcra have turned into that, unfortunately. So they're just walking around abducting people and not even knowing. So Genya falls to that, unfortunately, and then she's placed in a cage with his mother, who is a Morozov, I think. that's what the word is, because that is an important word later on, which I'm going to get into. I'm getting there. I really like these pieces. I think that it was really moving fast paced. I like Nikolai. We understand what the kingdom is, what is happening on the streets with the crows. So you get the balance of the two as well. And everyone's trying to fight for something. I think season 2 really showed that people fight for loved ones. People fight for, vengeance. People are fighting for their country, their land. People are fighting for something, but it's important to know that you need to fight for something. You need to keep fighting for what you believe in. When Nikolai proposes, he literally proposes to Alina to kind of form this bond in order to protect her. So obviously Nikolai knows that her and Mal are a thing, but in order to protect her from like the bounty from the Darkling, she needs to have the crown's protection. And Nikolai was like, let's get engaged. We don't actually have to get married, but let's get engaged, set the feelers out so everyone knows that like she cannot be touched as a sun summoner. She says yes. It is a good strategic move. It's fine. And I like that because there's a different vibe between her and Nikolai, which I really like. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm excited for that. It's a different relationship that she has with him. It's just funny because Alina has 3 different people that she has different connections with. And again, you get to see the difference in love and relationships between all 3 of those. And I think that's also important to note too, for what Alina wants and what she's choosing in her heart. So that is the big step there. On the way to find the 3rd amplifier, Bagra, which is the Darkling's mother, goes to help Alina. She's trying to figure it out. She's trying to break this bridge between her and the Darkling because he gets in her head. He gets in her head, roughs her up a bit. I don't like it, but she's also strong enough to get into his head, which is important too. So she tries to break that bond with Bagra. It doesn't happen. So she's like, the only thing that I can do right now is go get the Firebird, which is the 3rd amplifier. But it's also really hard to have all 3 amplifiers because something can go wrong. There's always consequences when it comes with magic. Obviously, we've known that. So she needs to go find this Firebird. On this journey, unfortunately, Bagra tells her the story of her past. And then she's trying to find out a bit about Mal. And he didn't really know much about his past, but Bagra did. Fishy, sketch. Why did this happen? So she knew a lot about Mal. And it was really interesting to find out that his lineage, this is a spoiler, everybody. His lineage, his bloodline is linked to the Darkling because his mother was Bagra's younger sister. So he's also a Mortsova or something along those lines. I am butchering that term, but he's also a Mortsova. So if you are a Mortsova, you're able to create amplifiers. And that is a big task, but also there's consequences with that. So we find out that he is also the final amplifier, the Firebird, that Alina needs. Heartbreaking. That's when I felt for Mal because it made so much sense. Why was he destined to be in her life? Why could he always find her? Why was he a tracker? Why were they so connected? And it has to do with the fact that he's the last amplifier. It's just insane that this storyline just made me so happy in that moment, even though it's so sad. It's like, that is a genius way to write a relationship. And I felt like over the moon when I found that out. I was just ecstatic because I'm like, this is genius. I was really happy with that. And especially because you're also setting up another relationship for Alina without actually meaning to in regards to the whole Mal situation. So obviously the Darkling catches wind of this. He gets into Mal's head as well. And Mal's like, I know what I have to do. There's no way around it. There's no solution. And they try to help Mal. And Alina's like, maybe if we stop your heart long enough, I can get the Firebird out of you and take the power, but you'll still be alive. So they tried different things. There was like this final standoff with the Darkling as well. So you have 2 sections. While all that's happening, the crows are trying to steal this blade of this woman who killed the unkillable soldiers. Obviously, these big creatures happened like at least like 400 years ago or something. And she created this blade that's sharp enough to cut through them, even though they don't have blood, bones, a heart, any of that. So she really sends the crows for a loop and a half by poisoning them. And the only person who didn't get poisoned was Wylan, and he made his like little concoction. He kind of knows the different potions, the counter potions, anecdotes, and all of that. So he knew how to take care of them afterwards. But when they ingested this poison, some of them were brought to the worst moments in their life. And it's just, each of them had their own dream. Obviously, Kaz went back to what happened with his brother and Pekka Rollins and how he died and all of that. And he couldn't breathe. He felt like he was drowning in the past. But then he saw that Inej in his dream was pulling him back out. That's who he was fighting for. So that pulled him back out, which I was like, oh my God, Kaz, it was perfect. And then Inej also had a dream, but it was strictly about Kaz. She was with him very intimately. And she kept saying, like, this is not real, this is not real, this is not real, which is even more heartbreaking because she just doesn't believe the fact that he could even love her. Jesper's the only one that really had such a beautiful dream about his mother, in that his mother was explaining to him that you have such a gift as a Grisha. We find out that he does have Grisha powers, and it's like, you have such a gift. Don't hide that part of yourself. That also goes with who he is and what he identifies as. And I think that his relationship with Wylan being so beautiful and out in the open this season is really nice. And he's trying to open himself up to everything this season. And I think that's why Jesper is one of the most important characters in season 2. I really loved him in this. So Wylan gives them the anecdote. They all come to, and they start fighting this older lady who has this blade. And they try to explain to her, it's like, this is what's happening. The fold is getting bigger, and we needed to fight these like monsters that are basically unkillable. But it was a really interesting scene to see their backstories, kind of each character with their nightmares, I think, and their fears. I think that was a really nice touch too. Obviously, in true fashion, fantasy fashion, one journey and another journey collide in the last 3 episodes. And while they're fighting off the Darkling and his army of Grisha, even with the second army or the first army from the king, they're all fighting. Nikolai gets into some hot water because these Grishas are coming at full force. But obviously Tolia comes in with Jesper and Wylan, and they end up fighting with them. And then Inej comes clutch with the blade in front of Alina. And it just works. It works. Everyone comes in the nick of time. I thought Inej had some really wicked fight scenes in this, and I had a lot of fun with this season. When Alina goes to take the Firebird out of Mal, Kerrigan was like, I'm gonna just nudge and kill him a little bit, because then if he dies, Alina's gonna be all mine. Doesn't have anybody. She makes the choice to take the Firebird out of him. He's dying. She tries to bring him back to life. Alina's like to Nina, I need you. Can you bring him back to life as a Heartrender? And she does it, kind of, but he's very stubborn. So Alina remembers what Bagra told her about the Moratov, about creating a light creature through her powers. That's what she did to Mal. She brought him back for her own good, not for his good. He no longer has a purpose in life, because his purpose in life was to be the Firebird, the amplifier for her. Once that's taken away from him, he feels empty when he returns, and it's horrible. So on top of that, not only does she do that to Mal, she gets the blade from Inej and kills the Darkling. And by killing the Darkling, something needs to happen there, because it didn't make any sense how she could just kill him. Made 0 sense. Okay? So she killed him. All of this comes to in the end. The anger that Alina has that Mal almost died, she releases her powers, and the Shadow Fold is completely torn down. So that's done. And she's sitting there with Mal like, you're not the same person that I was with beforehand. So she sends him off on a journey with Nikolai as a privateer, and he goes off instead of Nikolai. Nikolai has to rule as a king. He can't go do that. So he basically made him captain so he can go on adventures because he's really good at it. But Alina's staying back with Nikolai as a queen. She's now the queen because he is the king. And it's really interesting how that's going to go. Or she's going to officially marry him. And she knows that that's good for her. But at one of the ceremonies, she has to use her powers, because as that's happening, the Six of Crows find out that there is this little concoction made jus de parem that if you give it to a Grisha, it amplifies their powers, but they don't know how it amplifies their powers. That's going to head into season 3, and that's what's happening in Six of Crows. That's the book that I'm currently reading. So I was like, oh my God, I know that term. I was so happy. This happens during the ceremony. Alina gets her powers ready. Her powers are not blue, they're not gold, and they're not red. They are black. So she whips it at this woman that's coming to her, and she's shook. But at the same time, there's like this little smile on her face. Her eyes are different. What does this mean? And then that's what it ends with in season 2. And I was like, what? And it's because she killed Kiergan. She killed the Darkling and she took his powers. That's ridiculous what just happened. This is my assumption. I don't fully know if that's what happened, but I saw it and I was shook. This whole season was so well written that there's not one bad thing that happened in this season. I loved Shadow and Bone season 2. It is fantastic. Even if you haven't read the book or you're like kind of dipping your toe into it like I am with Six of Crows, holy Lord, was this such a good season. I loved it more than season 1. Season 2 is like really up there for me. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Like it is one of the best 8 episode series that I have watched this year next to The Last of Us. But there's not one bad episode. And given the Netflix structure of it, I think that it just really worked as it flows into every single episode. Like you don't want to stop watching it and you really connect to these characters. I think they're all fantastic. Everyone has their time to shine. And I felt like there was more of a balance and it was a bit more straightforward in season 2 than season 1. I felt season 1 was a bit messy with what they were trying to do with the crows, but I feel like this was a bit more spaced out and it didn't cut back too often. Like I felt the transitions were a bit stronger in this as well. I really like this. I did. Please let me know how much you love the Shadow and Bone series. If you think that season 2 is better than season 1 or vice versa, let me know in the comments below. So if you guys enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe. You can always follow me over at AMXNDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And if you guys want to help me grow this community, there are ways to help me out in the bio below. I've been absolutely loving this. So I'll catch you guys next time. Keep watching movies.